Director Jeff Hatling.
Thank you, Mayor Morgan. Let us pray. Lord, once again, we give you thanks and praise for this beautiful town you have given us to work in and do business in and watch over us as we conduct that business for this community. And thank you for giving us this beautiful spring and continue to watch over us. And thank you for blessing with us this time. And these things we pray. Amen.
Thank you. All right, and if you're following along, there are agendas at the back of the room, and it's also available online. This is the briefing meeting, so we'll be following the briefing agenda. All right, the first item on the agenda tonight is a review of the regular meeting agenda. All right, we'll have several public hearings. For public hearings, persons may come in person to speak. You may send in written comments prior to the meeting. The votes on the public hearing items will happen the night of the meeting because this is not remote because all of the aldermen are planning to be present. Again, we'll have two opportunities to participate in the meeting in person here in the municipal chambers. Some people call it the courtroom at Town Hall, and also the overflow room in the basement of the Kernersville Library. All right, 1A on the meeting is going to be a public hearing on the Kernersville Development Plan. Curtis Swisher, agent for the town of Kernersville, for consideration of an amendment to the Kernersville Development Plan to amend the land use plan from office and high-density residential to mixed use for properties located at the southern terminus of Salisbury Street at Salem Parkway, zoning docket KDP 55. In a related case, item 1B, public hearing rezoning, where petitioner requests a single-phase conditional use rezoning from PBS to RMUC, residential multifamily unrestricted conditional use, for property located at 904 Salisbury Street containing a total of 3.19 plus or minus acres. The requested use is residential building, multifamily, zoning docket K 518A1. Mr. Hatling?
Thank you, Mayor Morgan. These two cases, as described by the mayor, are associated with each other. The land use plan change, when staff was looking at the proposed rezoning, the rezoning is for a senior apartment complex. We saw some additional parcels in this small area just south of Salem Parkway along Salisbury that we're recommending, the planning board recommending that we change from office and high density to mixed use because there's a mixture of uses there now and there's some other opportunities for some redevelopment. So the planning board, Board of Aldermen recommend approval of the land use plan amendment. And also on the rezoning case, staff and the planning board is recommending approval as presented. Staff will be making some clarification on the actual use, the residential multifamily. We're looking back at it. It may need to be residential building, urban, but we'll, at the Board of Aldermen meeting, we'll have some clarification on that. There was no public opposition for the land use plan change or the rezoning.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions at this briefing meeting about that matter? Okay, then we'll move on. Item 1C on the meeting for Tuesday night is another public hearing. Kernersville Development Plan. Curtis Swisher, agent for the town of Kernersville, for consideration of an amendment to the Kernersville Development Plan to amend the land use plan for properties located at 1020 North Main Street regarding the maximum size of retail space and changing the land use designation for the adjacent parcel from low-density residential to commercial neighborhood. Zoning docket KDP 56. Mr. Hatling?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Morgan. This is just an amendment to our land use plan to adjust to the rezoning case out of North Main Street. This land use plan will match what was approved out at that case. That case was 784. Be happy to answer any questions. Staff and planning board is recommending approval. There's no public opposition.
Are there any questions tonight?
Is this just creating the exception for the grocery store building to be larger? Is that correct?
Yes, it amends that land use plan to make that retail store larger, and also there was one lot of this, one of the lots was in the land use plan is low density residential, and it would make it commercial.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other questions? All right, the next item for Tuesday night is item 1D, a public hearing rezoning. Petitioner requesting a single-phase conditional use rezoning from RS20 to RS12C PRD, residential single-family conditional use, for property located at 9431 County Line Road, containing a total of 36.13 plus or minus acres, with the uses requested residential building, single-family, and planned residential development, zoning docket K786.
Thank you, Mayor Morgan. This is as described by the mayor, a rezoning for a planned residential development. There's notes of public comments in the agenda. They're linked to the website. So we have numerous public comments for and against. The planning board vote was 4-5 against. So 4 planning board members voted for, 5 against. Staff is recommending approval. Be happy to answer any questions.
I was wondering about the changes that the planning board made to the recommendations for the site plan with moving some of the features around. Are those able to be implemented?
Yes, other than the planning board recommended turn lanes be considered by NCDOT for the senior apartments at Salisbury, and also turn lanes be considered for this County Line Road rezoning. Staff met with NCDOT. The North Main Street, the County Line Road has less than 4,000 trips per day on it currently, and NCDOT does not require turn lanes from new developments if it's less than 4,000. We do have a condition that reads, if the traffic count comes in during construction, at that time NCDOT could require turn lanes. But right now the current traffic counts of 2019 to 2021 will not be in for a couple of years. So we'll just have to see how the phasing goes. Regarding the Salisbury senior apartments, NCDOT and staff both agree that the elderly apartment complex would generate very low volume, and most of the traffic volume would be during non-peak. And so at this time, we're not recommending turn lanes in the senior apartments also.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, the next one is item 1E. Also a public hearing rezoning. Petitioner requests a single-phase conditional use rezoning from MUS to MUC, mixed-use conditional use for property located at 1188 Solomon Drive, containing a total of 17.49 plus or minus acres, zoning docket K719A3, uses requested residential building, multifamily.
This case is a rezoning in Smith Crossing. This would continue to expand the multifamily that Chris Parr has been building. We got support from not only, of course, Jeff Smith, the property owner, but also the adjacent shopping center where the Union Cross food line is. Certainly more residential supports more commercial vibrancy. Staff and planning boards recommended approval as presented, and the staff is recommending approval, and the planning board's recommending approval as presented. There was no public opposition. Also, this is another one where the residential building multifamily that's being recommended to be changed to residential building urban. And the residential building multifamily allows for up to 40-some foot height. And Chris Parr does a very architecturally enhanced building with high eaves, cupola on top, and also 9-foot ceiling. So you're really starting to get some more height based upon some of those design features. And that requires for the urban, which has a different height limitation. So, so staff planning boards recommended approval of this rezoning case.
Are there any questions?
So am I correct? It's hard to hear in here today. Is the big thing just the height of the building? Is that why we're changing the zoning classification?
Yeah, in 1994, when the UDO was adopted, apartments, didn't have 9-foot ceilings. They didn't have a lot of architectural enhancements to the pitch lines and so forth. So it's probably something staff's looking at doing a text amendment for to address the new design elements of these apartments. But yes, to answer directly to your answer, yes, the urban allows for the 3-story, but with some of these enhanced architectural features for additional height.
Okay.
Are there any further questions? All right, the next case is 1F, a public hearing rezoning. Petitioner requests a general use district rezoning from RS7 to PB, pedestrian business, for property located at 325 East Bodenhammer Street, containing a total of 0.18 plus or minus acres. Uses requested, all pedestrian business uses apply. Zoning docket K787. Mr. Hatling?
Thank you, Mayor Morgan. This site is located next to the Marble business on Bodenhammer Street. Recently, they did some very nice office improvements and enhancements to the area. They purchased a very small residential lot just to the south of them to allow for further expansion of their office building. They needed that land just to expand. It's pedestrian business because that's the only zoning district is a commercial with such a small zoning lot. Very little can be done with the lot. This is a general use rezoning. You consider all the uses, but basically the only real use would be for the office expansion, which will come about 10 feet in. Then there's a building setback from the existing the adjacent residential of 40 feet, and then a 15-foot buffer. So it really gets crowded for anything else. So right now we anticipate the office expansion going across the property line a little bit. And other uses may include maybe a little bit of storage, which would be screened because it's in the overlay district. But staff and planning board is recommending approval as presented. There was no public opposition.
Are there any questions? Okay. All right, we'll move to the public session. We'll have speakers from the floor on Tuesday night. The next item is 2B, consideration of a voluntary annexation petition by Curtis Swisher, agent for the town of Kernersville, for property located on Beeson Road across from Ivy Redmond Sports Complex at the intersection of Beeson Court, containing 13.539 acres, more or less. Mr. Swisher?
Madam Mayor, this is the parcel that the board had the public hearing on last month, and this is the vote on the annexation of that parcel. As it states, it's the parcel that's directly across from the dog lot. It is the parcel the town purchased, I think, about 2 months ago. So this will be the final step in annexing that parcel into the town limits.
Okay, are there any questions? Item C is consideration of a resolution to declare items surplus and authorize disposal. Mr. Swisher?
This will probably be our last surplus sale for this fiscal year. We have some various equipment in here. We've got some computers, some vehicles, some radios, some defibrillators, those items in it. We will also, as in the past, we'll utilize Gov Deals for the auction. That auction will begin on May the 18th, and I think it runs maybe 10 days. And again, it'll be online there at Gov Deals. We've had a lot of success using that form in the past, so we don't see any need to change it right now.
Are there any questions?
I have a question on the fire truck. I thought we were donating that to the fire school. Is that the same truck or no? It's a 1986 is what it's saying.
That's not the same.
It's not
truck.
the same
No,
one.
that's not the same truck we were going to donate, is it, Chief? Yeah, I think the one you're talking about, I think we've already donated one to East Forsyth. Was it East or was it Glenn?
Glenn, I thought.
I don't think that's the same one.
It's asset number 1160.
Yeah, I believe the one you're talking about is the one we replaced one before this. I think.
1986 Grumman pumper truck number 309.
Okay. So
It
it is
should or
one
should
that-
not be on there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So that is one we were donating. Maybe it won't make it to the school.
Did anyone notice anything else on the list? Maybe review the list before we vote on it, Curtis.
Excuse me?
Maybe review the list before we vote on it on Tuesday. Make sure
Yeah.
that everything is supposed to be on it. It's probably on your surplus list. It just
Yeah, I
got
mean,
carried over.
It was on the surplus list and it probably needed to be declared surplus, but not be on the auction list.
All right, we are to item D, which is consideration of an ordinance regarding the parking of mobile retail vendors in certain locations, and an ordinance to allow food trucks and mobile retail vendors in certain locations. And this was, I believe, loaded to the website earlier today. So it's available for everyone to review. Mr. Swisher?
This draft or ordinance you have in front of you is similar to the one that we had last month that did not receive a second to the motion. The only change is that this one also allows for one property licensed mobile retail sales truck. It's basically the same time, Saturday, Sunday, Monday from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Tuesday through Friday from 5 p.m. until 9 p.m. Still the same regulations. They can only park in a marked space in front of the business that is hosting the truck. The reason for that is if we just open it up to any parking space, basically downtown, without having to have a host to be there, then you could end up, realistically on a Friday or Saturday night, trucks parked in all the spots. So we wanted it to be that someone has to be hosting them and they have to be parked in front of that business. So we wouldn't want it so that you have trucks all up and down Main Street. Then you take up all the spaces and everything else. So pretty much it's the same as one last month. I think it did expand to include the mobile retail sales truck, and I think maybe Saturday, Sunday, Monday from 11 to 9, whereas before it was Saturday, it was basically Monday through Sunday from 5 to 9. So be glad to answer any questions. I think I do think the gentleman with Follies or however it goes, Follies maybe is coming, and maybe the folks with KBC, I'm not sure, but Follies is the one that actually requested it some time ago because he has food trucks quite often with nowhere to park them. He has been utilizing the space beside of his business there, but that he can't get a food truck in there all that good, but he's been utilizing it for seating and so forth. But that will go away as the executive order is lifted. That will also go away because of the way the board passed allowing them to do that. They're allowed to utilize town right away as long as the executive order is in place regarding alcohol and food. So, I don't know when that'll go away, but it's probably not far out before it does.
Hey, are there any questions of Curtis? Okay. All right, we will be then on Tuesday night, we'll go on to item 2F, which is consideration of an update to the residency requirement and take-home vehicle policy for law enforcement officers. Mr. Swisher?
I can do 2F. You want me to do 2E first?
Oh, yes, let's do the budget amendment first. Let's stay in order.
All right, the budget
All right,
amendment
let
is,
me call it properly, though. Consideration of an ordinance for budget amendment number 7 for fiscal year 2021.
the budget amendment, there's two large items in the budget amendment. Increase in the recreation department for $100,000 to cover an increase in costs for the Kernersville Lake Dam repair project. I think we initially budgeted 200,000 for that, and it's going to run somewhere between 250 and 300,000. We have the contract in hand to start making those repairs, and we have to make the repairs. It's not an option. We've been notified by our insurance company that if we don't make the repairs, then they will no longer insure us. So it's probably time to make the repairs. So we need that. And then we have an increase of $252,000 to cover the cost of the demolition of Abbotts Creek wastewater treatment plant. That will be reimbursed to us from CCUC. The other two in there, the first one is in the inspections department. We need to hire a part-time inspector. We're fortunate that we've got a lot of building and growth going on, but we've got to get it inspected. So we're recommending a part-time inspector for $10,000 and then a replacement vehicle. One that's in the CIP, we're recommending going ahead and replacing that. As you can see, there is an increase in the revenues to offset that as well. So the only two that's not covered by revenues is the $6,000 for a surveyor, part-time surveyor, and the $100,000 for the recreation department for the dam repairs.
Are there any questions? All right. Now we are to the residency requirement and take-home vehicle policy for law enforcement officers.
The Chief Summers and I have been discussing how difficult it is to hire police officers. That's becoming more difficult every day. I don't know that we've been fully staffed in a year or two. About 5 years. So it's becoming more difficult. But we think we can loosen our residency requirements and our take-home policy for vehicles. Currently, our residency requirements are 30 miles, and we're recommending eliminating that. Our thought is if, you just got to get to work. We don't care whether you live hour or hour and a half as long as you get to work. When the residency requirements were in place, we had a much smaller staff years ago, and the folks, the thought was we wanted them to be close by so that they could respond back if an emergency occurred. But we have more folks on duty now at all times than we had then. So, we're fully staffed, or when we have everybody on shift at once, we've got as many as what we'd call back. So we're asking the board to approve eliminating the residency requirement and make the take-home car 30 miles. Is that correct? Yep.
Are there any questions? All right, the next would be item 3, which is the consent agenda. So carefully read the minutes and make sure that you don't see any changes we need to make for the March 31 briefing, the March 31 closed session, the April 6 regular meeting, and the April 6 closed session. Then it will be items removed from the consent agenda, speakers from the floor, the town manager's report. Is there anything you anticipate bringing up on Tuesday night?
No, ma'am.
All right. Then there would be matters to be presented by the town attorney on Tuesday night, matters to be presented by the mayor and board of aldermen, and then adjournment. So that puts us back to the briefing agenda. So we're to item 2 on the briefing agenda, matters to be presented tonight by the mayor and board of aldermen. Chris, do you have anything?
No, ma'am. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said Curtis.
I think I've got something on Curtis's list to look into the acoustics in the room between now and
Yeah, I can't hear that side real good. I could hear Jeff pretty good, but I couldn't.
Thank you. But Chris's microphone is not on too. Test your microphone, let's see.
Can you hear me now?
How's that? Okay, good.
Curtis, I have nothing tonight, thank you.
Thank you.
We can hear you.
I don't either.
We want you to be able to make a motion or second or whatever, or a comment on Tuesday, so we'll be set. All right. Kenny, is your microphone on? Do you have anything to present tonight?
I can't. Nothing tonight, thank you.
Okay. Can everyone hear Kenny okay? All right. Mayor Pro Tem Fulton?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Bruce?
Just one thing. I want to thank you all in the audience which is our town staff, and the people that work for you. We are sitting in here for the first time since February. You've been at work pretty much every day or working a schedule or shift that allows you to work from home or whatever. And I appreciate the town staff, all of them, keeping all of our town services going for our citizens. I have the benefit of being retired, and so I can afford to sit home and do that. But you have really done an extraordinary job. And I think the town is coming through this pandemic as well as anybody could ever have expected. And that's because of you all and the people that work for you and doing your job. So I just wanted to thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Joe? Can you test your microphone for me? Let's test your microphone. You want to speak?
ma'am.
Could y'all hear him?
Can you hear me?
Do you want to move it a little closer?
I have nothing further.
Thank you. Thank you, Alderman Penix. All right. We are to matters to be presented by the town manager and town attorney. Curtis, will you hand John your microphone? Oh, okay, I didn't see
No.
John's microphone. John, do you have anything that you were planning to present on Tuesday night that is not on the agenda that you know about at this time?
Not that I know of at this time, Mayor.
Okay. And do you have anything tonight other than a closed session?
Nothing other than a closed session.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Powell?
Just a closed session, I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you. Curtis, do you have anything else to present tonight? Thank you. All right, if there is nothing further on the May 4th agenda that we need to review tonight and nothing further on the briefing agenda, could I have a motion for a closed session?
They tend to make me want to read this, so I will do that. It's my understanding, Madam Mayor, that there are certain matters about which our town attorney needs to advise us and which fall within the attorney-client privilege for discussion in closed session, as well as matters of personnel that the board must address. I therefore move, Madam Mayor, that the board go into closed session to confer with our legal counsel under the attorney-client privilege for such purposes, as well as to discuss certain matters of personnel for the town.
I have a motion by Alderman Boyer. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Alderman Penix. All those in favor, raise your hand. The motion passes unanimously. This board is going into closed session. Is there any further business before the board?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we add, don't you want that for, the town manager's compensation to our next agenda, which is on May 4th, Tuesday.
Okay.
Yes, please.
I've got a motion. Got a second by Alderman Boyer. Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Fulton. Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Fulton to add to the agenda a consideration of an ordinance setting compensation for the town manager for the next budget, the fiscal year 2021-22. And John, do we also need to add the employment contract specifically to the agenda? And your motion included the
It
employment
included the
contract.
contract.
Okay.
So all in one.
All right, well, so we'll add both things to the agenda for the May 4th meeting,
next
and it'll
week.
get posted by our town clerk tomorrow. All right, is there any further business before the board this evening? Oh, I'm so sorry. We've got a motion, we've got a second, we've got clarification as to the wording of the motion. All in favor? It's unanimous. All right, is there any further business before the board? Got a motion to adjourn by Alderman Boyer. Do I have a second? Second by Alderman Thompson.